I never thought I'd be that guy, the one who gets cheated on. I mean, I always considered myself a decent husband. I provided for my family, I was there when it mattered, and I genuinely loved my wife, Sarah. We had a nice house in a good neighborhood and two kids who were the light of our lives. But lately, things had felt off and I couldn't shake this nagging feeling in the back of my mind. At first, it was just little things. Sarah started coming home later from work, claiming she was tied up with meetings. I'd ask about her day and she'd give me vague answers. She was always distracted, scrolling through her phone whenever we'd sit down to eat. I thought maybe she was just stressed. After all, she had recently been promoted to manager at her job. But when I asked about it, she would roll her eyes and snap back. "Can a woman work without you making it a big deal?" I brushed it off, but the distance between us grew. I would try to engage her, but she'd cut me short. One weekend, I noticed a strange perfume on her clothes. I didn't say anything. I wanted to believe it was just a coworker's scent that had rubbed off on her. But in my gut, I knew something was wrong. Then it happened. I was cleaning out the garage one Saturday, and in the corner, I found a small, crumpled piece of paper. It looked like a receipt from a hotel, dated for a weekend when Sarah had said she was going on a girls' trip with her friends. My heart raced as I opened it, and my stomach dropped when I recognized the name of the hotel. I felt like I was punched in the gut. I had never felt so betrayed. I waited until she got home to confront her. My hands trembled as I held the receipt, and I could see the confusion on her face when I shoved it in front of her. "What's this, Sarah?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Her reaction was immediate. She laughed it off, saying it was an old receipt from a trip she had taken years ago. "You know how useless I am with paperwork," she said, waving a hand dismissively. But I wasn't buying it. "You expect me to believe that? This is dated last month and you were supposed to be with your friends." I felt anger bubbling up inside me, but I didn't want to lose control. I wanted answers. "That's ridiculous. I told you I was with them." She shot back, the bitchy tone in her voice cutting through me. I'd never seen her like this before. The woman I loved was now defensive, lying right to my face, and I could feel the trust slipping away. My mind raced as I processed her words. How could she be so casual about this? I felt a storm of emotions, anger, sadness, confusion. I wanted to scream, I wanted to cry. Instead, I just stood there, my heart sinking deeper with every lie she fed me. As the confrontation escalated, I could see her facade start to crack. She finally blurted out something that shocked me even more. "You're the one who should be worried about cheating. You've been distant. Maybe you're the one who's not being faithful." The audacity, the projection was unreal. I couldn't believe my ears. She was turning the tables on me, making me feel like I was in the wrong for questioning her. It was classic deflection, and part of me wanted to laugh, but the pain was too fresh. How could she accuse me when it was so clear she was hiding something? I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure. The confrontation was spiraling out of control, and I needed to take a step back. I didn't have all the evidence I needed yet, but I was determined to find out the truth, no matter how much it hurt. With my mind racing, I knew I had to gather more proof, to dig deeper. The thought of losing everything, my family, my trust in her, was unbearable. But one thing was clear: this was just the beginning of a much darker chapter in our lives. I'd soon find out just how deep this rabbit hole went, and I was ready to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. After that explosive confrontation, I felt like I was living in a nightmare. The next few days were tense and awkward. Sarah tried to act like nothing had happened, but every time I looked at her, the image of that hotel receipt haunted me. I spent sleepless nights replaying the conversation in my head, trying to understand how she could lie so easily. I felt like I was in a fog and I needed clarity. I decided to take a few days off work. I wanted to gather evidence to piece together the puzzle of Sarah's infidelity. I started by checking her phone, something I had never done before. I felt a pang of guilt, but I couldn't let that stop me. I needed to know the truth. I was careful not to arouse any suspicion. I waited for her to go to bed, then I quietly grabbed her phone from the kitchen counter. My hands shook as I unlocked it. Her Face ID was still active, thank God. My heart raced as I scrolled through her messages. I had hoped to find something, some clue that would confirm my fears. And then I saw it, a series of texts between Sarah and someone named Jake. The messages were flirty, filled with inside jokes and heart emojis. My gut twisted as I read through the exchanges. It was like a punch to the stomach. Her words dripped with affection for someone who wasn't me. I scrolled back further and found messages that detailed secret meetups, places they'd gone together, and times she'd lied to me about where she was. The confrontation replayed in my mind. How could she accuse me of cheating when she was the one betraying our marriage? One message stood out. Can't wait to see you this weekend. I'll tell my husband I'm going to my mom's. I felt bile rise in my throat. It was real. The evidence was damning, and the person she was cheating with was someone I didn't even know. I felt the ground shift beneath me as anger overtook the waves of disbelief. With my heart racing, I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I would have proof. I couldn't let her twist the narrative in her favor again. I planned to catch her off guard, but first I needed to dig deeper. Over the next few days, I played the role of the dutiful husband. I picked up groceries, helped with the kids, and even made dinner. All the while, I kept my composure and my secrets. She had no idea that I was onto her. I decided to follow her one Friday evening. Sarah had planned a girls' night out, and I figured that would be the perfect opportunity to confront her. I borrowed my brother's car, just in case she noticed mine parked outside the house. With a mix of dread and determination, I mapped out her route in my head. As the evening approached, I felt a mix of excitement and fear. I parked a few blocks away from the restaurant where she said she'd be meeting her friends. I watched her get into the car and my heart raced as she drove off. I followed at a safe distance, my mind racing with what I would say when I confronted her. But then the unexpected happened. Instead of heading to the restaurant, she turned in the opposite direction, heading toward a hotel, the same one from the receipt. My heart sank into my stomach. I couldn't believe it. She was going to meet Jake. I felt a rush of nausea as I parked and hurried into the hotel lobby. As I entered, I tried to remain calm. I could see her at the check-in counter, chatting with the receptionist. I hid behind a potted plant, my heart pounding in my chest. I watched as she checked in, and just a few minutes later she disappeared into an elevator. All I could think was how naive I had been. I needed to confront her to put an end to this charade. I decided to wait in the lobby for her to come back down. My fingers tapped nervously on my phone as I prepared myself for what was about to happen. I was filled with anticipation and dread. What if she denied everything again? What if she turned it all on me? As the minutes ticked by, I watched the elevator doors open and close multiple times, my heart racing with every chime. I felt like I was in a movie, one where the protagonist was about to uncover the truth about their partner, but this wasn't fiction, this was my life. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the elevator doors opened again, and there she was, laughing as she walked out with Jake. My hands balled into fists as adrenaline surged through my body. I had to face her now. I stepped out from the shadows and called out, "Sarah." She froze, her eyes wide in shock as she turned to see me. I could see the color drain from her face. I had caught her in the act, and I was about to make sure she had nowhere to run or hide. The moment I called her name, the air in the hotel lobby grew thick with tension. Sarah's eyes darted to Jake, who looked just as stunned as she was. There was an instant recognition in his face, a look that told me he wasn't expecting to be caught like this. I stepped forward, my heart pounding in my chest, fueled by a rush of anger and betrayal. "Sarah, what the hell is going on?" I demanded, my voice tense but steady. Her expression shifted from shock to a defensive mask faster than I could process. "What are you doing here?" She shot back, her voice trembling slightly though she tried to maintain her bravado. "This is private." "Private?" I echoed, incredulous. "You think cheating on your husband is private? I guess you've been lying to me this whole time then." I gestured towards Jake, who was standing awkwardly a few feet away, clearly unsure of how to respond. "Jake, get out of here," Sarah snapped, her eyes darting between us, desperate to regain control of the situation. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate this moment. "No, I want him to stay," I said, my voice low and firm. "I want him to hear this." I turned my attention back to Sarah, who was visibly sweating now. "You've been lying to me for months. All those late nights at work, those girls' nights. It was all a facade. You're cheating on me with him." I gestured toward Jake, who stood with his hands in his pockets, looking like he wanted to disappear. "Shut up, you don't know what you're talking about," she yelled, but I could see the cracks in her confidence. Her voice was rising and her composure was slipping away. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about. You're a liar, a cheat. Is this how you repay my trust? You're accusing me of being unfaithful when you've been seeing him." I pointed an accusatory finger at Jake, who finally spoke up. "Look, man, shut up," I roared, cutting him off. "You're part of this mess too." "How could you? You knew she was married." Jake opened his mouth again, but Sarah turned on him, her demeanor shifting from defensive to angry. "This isn't about you. Get out of here." She snapped, and I could see the desperation in her eyes. I stepped closer to her, unable to hide the hurt and betrayal anymore. "How long has this been going on? You owe me that much." Her silence spoke volumes. The seconds felt like hours as I waited for her to respond. She finally looked away, her gaze dropping to the floor. "A few months," she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "A few months." I felt the weight of her admission crash down upon me like a ton of bricks. I had suspected it, but hearing her say it made it all too real. "So all those times you claimed to be busy were just lies. What about our family? What about the kids?" "It was complicated, okay?" she snapped, regaining some of her composure. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could just have a little fun without it affecting everything. But you pushed me away." I took a deep breath, trying to process her words. "You're blaming me for your infidelity. You think that justifies this?" She crossed her arms defensively. "You've been distant. You never pay attention to me anymore. I needed someone." The sheer audacity of her reasoning made my blood boil. My chest tightened as I fought against the wave of emotions crashing down on me. "So you decided the solution was to cheat? That's your answer?" "I never meant for it to go this far," she said, her voice softening, but I wasn't buying it. All I could see was the betrayal reflected in her eyes. The woman I thought I knew was crumbling before me. I took another step back, shaking my head in disbelief. "You know what? I don't even want to hear your excuses. You've made your choice. I deserve better than this. I deserve someone who actually cares about me." The realization hit me like a freight train. As much as it hurt, I couldn't be with someone who disrespected our marriage and our family. I turned to Jake, who still stood awkwardly in the background, and added, "And you stay the hell away from my family. You're nothing but a coward to have done this." Sarah's eyes were now brimming with tears, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy, but it didn't last long. "You're going to regret this," she said defiantly, her anger resurfacing. "Regret what? Finding you out, or standing up for myself after you've treated me like this?" I shot back. I could see the realization wash over her. There was no turning back from this. I was done playing her games. As I turned to leave, I felt a mix of relief and heartbreak. I had finally confronted her, but the damage was done. My heart felt heavy as I stepped out of the hotel and into the cool night air. I had caught her red-handed, but now I faced the reality of what had just unfolded. I knew I had to make a decision about our future. This was far from over, and I had a lot to figure out. As I drove home, I felt lost, but one thing was certain. I wouldn't allow myself to be a victim anymore. I would find a way to reclaim my life, no matter the cost. The drive home was a blur. My mind was racing with a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal, and a strange sense of liberation. I had confronted Sarah, and for the first time in months I felt like I had taken back some control. But the reality of what I had just witnessed weighed heavily on my heart. I was still reeling from the confrontation, and I knew my life was about to change forever. When I got home, the house felt eerily quiet. The kids were already asleep, blissfully unaware of the chaos that had erupted in their parents' lives. I walked through the darkened rooms, the shadows of our life together looming around me. Everything felt tainted by her betrayal. I wanted to scream, but I also didn't want to wake the children. Instead, I sank down on the couch, running my hands through my hair. I thought about the conversations we'd had, the dreams we'd built together. How did we get here? I replayed the moments in my mind, all the signs I had ignored, the moments I had brushed off as stress or fatigue. I felt the anger rising again, but there was also a deep sadness that settled in my chest. This wasn't just about her cheating, it was about the destruction of our family, and that hurt more than anything. As I sat there in the dark, I knew I had to take action. I couldn't just sit around and wallow in pain. I needed to decide what to do next. The thought of staying with Sarah gnawed at me. Could I ever trust her again? Could we mend this? Deep down, I knew that trust was shattered beyond repair. The next morning, I woke up early, feeling a sense of determination. I had to talk to Sarah, but this time it would be different. I would lay everything on the table. I needed her to understand the gravity of her actions. I needed her to face the consequences of what she had done. When Sarah finally emerged from our bedroom, I was already sitting at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, staring blankly at the floor. She looked tired, her eyes puffy, and I could tell she hadn't slept well. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but quiet. She nodded, her expression a mix of regret and defiance. "I know," she said, her tone flat. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "Those words don't mean anything anymore," I shot back. "You say you didn't mean for it to happen, but you made a choice. You chose to lie to me, to betray my trust. You chose him over us." "I was feeling lost," she said, her voice cracking. "You were so distant and I didn't know how to fix it. I thought maybe finding someone else would make me feel better." "Finding someone else? So you think cheating is the answer to feeling lost?" I couldn't help but scoff. "That's your excuse. You didn't even think about what this would do to our family." "I wasn't thinking clearly," she admitted, the tears spilling over her cheeks. "I just wanted to feel something again." "Feel something?" I echoed, bewildered. "You put your desires before our family. You think this is something I can just forget. Do you even realize how hurtful this is?" "Please, I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I never wanted to hurt you." "Sorry doesn't cut it, Sarah. You took a wrecking ball to everything we built together." The anger bubbled up again, but I held it back. I had to stay focused. "I want you to know that I can't keep living like this. I can't be with someone who doesn't respect our marriage." Her expression shifted from sorrow to desperation. "What are you saying? Are you going to leave me?" "I don't know, but I can't stay in this situation. I need time to think. We both need time to think." Her eyes widened and I could see the panic in her expression. "But what about the kids? We can work this out. I'll do anything." "The kids deserve better than a mother who lies and cheats," I said, my voice firm. "I'm not saying I'm leaving for good. I just need to take a step back and figure out what's best for all of us." As I spoke, I noticed that she was starting to crumble. All the bravado she had during our confrontation at the hotel faded, and I could see the fear in her eyes. It was a fear that I understood. I was afraid too. But it was also a fear that came from the realization that she had brought this upon herself. "I can fix this," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "Just give me another chance. I swear I'll make it right." "But can you?" I challenged. "Can you really come back from this? I don't know if I can ever trust you again. The damage is done." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our conversation hanging heavy in the air. I felt the tears prick my eyes but forced them back. I wouldn't let her see me break. Finally, I stood up, needing to break the tension. "I'm going to stay at my brother for a while, just until I can think clearly. I don't know what the future holds for us, but we need space." As I walked to the door, I could feel her eyes on me, a mix of regret and desperation. "Please don't leave me," she said quietly. But deep down, I knew I had to do this for myself and for my kids. I stepped out into the cool morning air, feeling a mix of relief and dread wash over me. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing for sure. I wouldn't allow myself to be a victim any longer. The road ahead would be tough, but I was determined to navigate it, no matter what lay ahead. The first few days at my brother's house were a blur. I felt like a ghost, drifting through the motions of my life while my mind reeled from the chaos Sarah had unleashed. I spent my days at his place, trying to distract myself with anything I could find: sports, old movies, even cooking. But no matter what I did, my thoughts always drifted back to Sarah and the mess we were in. I missed my kids terribly. They were the only things that brought me any semblance of joy during this tumultuous time. I made it a point to keep in touch, calling them every night to see how they were doing. It broke my heart to hear their innocent voices, unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface of our family life. I wanted to protect them, to shield them from the fallout of their mother's choices. Meanwhile, Sarah was reaching out, sending me texts filled with apologies and pleas for a second chance. She'd messaged me about how she was going to change, how she was seeing a therapist to work on herself, and how she couldn't imagine life without me. But every time I read her messages, I felt a mix of anger and sadness wash over me. I wanted to believe her, but the trust that had been shattered felt irreparable. It wasn't until I got a call from my sister-in-law that I began to reconsider my next steps. She'd been following along with everything and wanted to sit down with me. "Look, I know this is tough," she said gently, "but you need to think about what you truly want. Is there a part of you that still wants to fight for your marriage?" Her words struck a chord. I had been so focused on my hurt and betrayal that I hadn't taken a moment to truly reflect on what I wanted. Did I still love Sarah? Could I envision a future where we worked through this? Or was it time to cut my losses and move forward without her? Honestly, I don't know, I admitted, my voice heavy. Part of me still loves her, but the way she's hurt me. It's hard to look past that. "Take your time," she advised. "It's okay to feel lost. Just don't make any rash decisions until you're sure about what you want." Her words lingered in my mind as I drove back home the next day. I hadn't been at the house in nearly a week, and I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation as I pulled into the driveway. The sight of our family home stirred up a whirlwind of memories, happy moments that now felt tainted. I stepped inside, the familiar scent of our home wrapping around me like a blanket. It was just as I had left it. The kids, toys scattered across the living room, the remnants of breakfast still on the table. As I moved through the house, I felt an overwhelming sense of nostalgia. This was our life, and I wasn't ready to throw it all away just yet. I found Sarah in the kitchen, her back turned to me as she prepared dinner. She looked up when she heard the door creak open, her face pale and drawn. The tension in the room was palpable, and I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. "You came back," she said softly. "I did," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "We need to talk." She nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she set down the knife she had been using. "I've been waiting for you to come home. I want to explain everything." I held up a hand to stop her. "I don't want more excuses, Sarah. I want to understand why this happened. What were you thinking?" I could see the gears turning in her head as she tried to formulate a response. "I wasn't thinking. I was lost, and I thought I was doing what I needed to feel alive again, but I see now how selfish that was. I hurt you, and I'm so sorry for that." Her voice cracked, and I saw genuine remorse on her face. The tears streamed down her cheeks, and I felt a flicker of compassion. But I couldn't let that distract me from the truth. "But it's not just the cheating, Sarah. It's everything, the lies, the betrayal. It's the fact that you were willing to risk our family for a thrill." "I know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to show you that I can change. I've started seeing a therapist, and I'm working on understanding why I did this." "Therapy is a good start," I acknowledged, "but it doesn't change the past. It doesn't erase the fact that you made those choices. I need time to process this, to figure out if I can trust you again." "I understand," she replied, her voice trembling. "I'll do whatever it takes to earn that trust back. I just don't want to lose you. I can't lose our family." As we stood there, the silence wrapped around us, and I felt the weight of our situation settle heavily on my shoulders. I had a choice to make. Could I see a path forward? Could I envision a future where we could rebuild what had been broken? After what felt like an eternity, I finally spoke, my voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again, but I'm willing to explore the possibility of healing. We need to take this one step at a time." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she nodded, relieved but aware of the long road ahead. "Thank you. That's all I ask for time." As I looked into her eyes, I felt a spark of hope, a glimmer that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. But I also knew this wouldn't be easy. Trust would take time to rebuild, and I was prepared for the challenges ahead. With that thought in mind, I took a deep breath and resolved to face the future together, step by step. We had a long journey ahead, but perhaps it wasn't entirely over yet. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions and effort. Sarah and I slowly began to navigate the fragile space between us. We had our conversations, some productive and others filled with tension. She was genuinely committed to making things right, attending therapy regularly, and even reading books on relationships to better understand her choices. I could see she was trying, but the memories of her betrayal still haunted me. Every time we sat down to talk, I felt the weight of the past pressing down on me. I couldn't help but replay the lies she had told and the moments of intimacy we had shared that felt so tainted now. It was like trying to piece together a shattered vase. Every time I thought I had a handle on it, I'd cut myself again on the sharp edges of our history. The kids were blissfully unaware of the tensions swirling around us. We kept our discussions away from them, focusing instead on being the best parents we could be. I found solace in their laughter, their innocence, and their love. It was a reminder of what we had built together and what was worth fighting for. As part of our new routine, we started going to couples therapy. Sitting across from a trained professional, I felt exposed. It was painful to lay bare our struggles, but it also felt like a necessary step toward healing. Sarah would share her perspective, and while I didn't always agree with her reasoning, hearing her explain her feelings helped me understand her motivations, even if I couldn't condone her actions. One evening, after a particularly intense therapy session, we sat on the couch, both exhausted. "Do you think we'll ever get back to the way we were?" she asked, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "I don't know," I admitted, looking at the floor. "I think we need to redefine what our relationship looks like now. It won't be the same, it can't be, but with time I hope we can find a new way to connect." "And what if we can't?" she asked, her eyes searching my face for answers. "Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it," I replied. "Right now I want to focus on healing and rebuilding. It's all we can do." As time passed, we began to rebuild a fragile trust. It was a slow process marked by small victories and setbacks. There were days when I felt frustrated, when the memories of her betrayal would rise up like a tidal wave, threatening to pull me under. But there were also days filled with laughter, connection, and budding hope. I found myself in a place of acceptance. I still loved Sarah, but I was learning to prioritize my own emotional well-being. I didn't want to be a victim of her choices anymore. I was reclaiming my story, and in doing so I was learning to love myself again. One evening, after the kids had gone to bed, Sarah surprised me with a candle-lit dinner. She had made my favorite meal, and the effort she put into it made me smile. As we sat together, it felt like a small victory, a sign that we might just be on the right track. "You know, I really appreciate everything you're doing," I said, looking into her eyes. "I can see you're putting in the effort, and it means a lot to me." "I'm doing this for us," she replied, her voice sincere. "I want to show you that I'm not the person I was before. I want to be better for you, for our family." As I looked at her, I felt a flicker of the love that had once burned brightly between us. It wouldn't be easy, and I knew we had a long way to go before we could fully trust each other again. But this moment, this connection, was a step in the right direction. I smiled softly, realizing that while the road ahead was uncertain, we were willing to walk it together. "Let's keep working on it, one day at a time," I said, raising my glass in a toast. "To new beginnings," she echoed, her eyes glistening with hope. As we clinked our glasses together, I felt a surge of determination. We had faced the storm, and while the scars would always be there, they would also serve as reminders of our resilience. The journey to rebuild wouldn't be linear, but we were both willing to fight for what we had. And in that moment, I realized that sometimes love isn't just about the fairy tale. It's about weathering the storms and emerging stronger on the other side. We were still a work in progress, but I believed we could find our way back to each other and perhaps build something even stronger than before. The future was uncertain, but we were willing to face it together.